Breaking news tonight, police in pursuit of a driver they say is driving a stolen car.
Desmond Shaw live in SkyCal tonight with the details for us. Desmond, what's happening here?
Susie and Chauncey, we are on the westbound side of the 10 coming through the San Gabriel Valley, but this started out in the Inland Empire in Fontana with Fontana PD. It looks like maybe CHP that is taken over on this one, this allegedly stolen Toyota Tacoma, we believe it to be. Looks like they have their hazards on. Just before we went to air, we noticed a spike strip attempt by CHP. You can see a pretty slow speed pursuit as far as things go here. We've only been looking at speeds between 35 and 45 miles an hour, and so it looked like they were taking that opportunity to attempt to do a spike strip. You know what? It looks like this is actually still Fontana PD there, but the spike strip attempt was by CHP at the on-ramp there, westbound 10. I believe that was at Santa Anita. So we are now barreling toward, well, not barreling, we're kind of just cruising, I would say, towards downtown Los Angeles, westbound on the 10 here with this Toyota Tacoma pickup truck and authorities in tow. Chauncey and Susie.
So, Desmond, did the the driver, veer around that spike strip, as far as you know?
They did, and yeah, and I think, you know, that they were clearly paying attention, and because they were going so slow, you know, I think they got a little bit of a warning there. They were able to see it and get around it pretty easily. So this is also kind of turning into a little bit of a traffic kerfuffle for people as well, as the authorities are kind of running that extended traffic break that you saw earlier in our shot there. So that's going to be another issue for people that are out here right now. And it's not clear if there's anything else going on here as far as how this vehicle was taken. Was this a carjacking? Was this a vehicle where the engine was left running as someone ran into a liquor store, something like that? We're not privy to that information at this point. They also haven't said how many people are inside the vehicle. So we'll see if we get any of that information right now. And we'll see if there's another spike strip attempt here with these slow speeds. It can certainly open up that opportunity for CHP, but they did already dodge at least one of those attempts.
All right, Desmond, and we are getting information that this did start as a carjacking. We want to flip it over here to the desk. And Mike, you have this information on how this all started.
Right, and we're listening to the radio traffic right now. This is, as Desmond mentioned, this is still Fontana PD. Fontana PD not interested in giving it up to CHP. CHP has asked them if they want to take it over, and Fontana PD says, nope, we want to hang on to this one. And it did, yeah, Chauncey, as you mentioned, come out as what's called a 215 vehicle. That's the penal code in California for a carjacking. That's what this is a carjacking. Now, was it by force? Was it with a weapon? That's still all unclear. We had heard some initial traffic that there possibly was a gun in the car. We don't know if that gun was used in the commission of the alleged carjacking, but it was something that they were making officers aware of, that there could possibly be a handgun inside. But again, Fontana PD does not want CHP to take this over. They do want their help, as Desmond mentioned, with the spike strips. They're calling for another one right now, kind of as we talk about this. But Fontana PD very interested in keeping this. Fontana PD's helicopter is over this as well. And for a time, you had Fontana PD, the sheriff's, and CHP helicopters all over this. So 3 law enforcement helicopters. This person obviously not going to evade any of them. But yeah, Fontana is hanging on to this one, but they do want CHP's help with some spike strips.
Yeah, for whatever reason that might be, right, Mike? I mean, oftentimes agencies won't relinquish pursuits for ABC reasons, right?
Right. You know, especially when we get into these, not that Fontana is a small city, but when we get into these kind of smaller jurisdictions, sometimes they like to hang on to them, especially if the crime or the alleged crime happened in their city. So this kind of leads me to believe that this was something that happened in their city. Maybe it was witnessed, but usually these agencies, if it's just something where they run a plate and the car comes back stolen or a carjacked vehicle out of a different city, they'll chase it till it gets to the freeway and hand it off because it's not their caper, right? But the fact that they're staying with it now all the way until we're coming into Rosemead, Monterey Park, leads me to believe that this is probably Fontana's case originally, and they want to stick with it.
And I want to go back up to Desmond Shaw in SkyCal. Desmond, explain how this driver was able to skirt around those spike strips by CHP.
Well, you know, the officer threw the spike strip out there, and I think just because this person's going so slowly, they kind of had more than a split second to see that spike strip in front of them. It happened pretty quickly. Maybe, you know, the officer might have unfurled it a little bit too quickly. It's a very, very, obviously a very tough operation to do. Officers that you know, throw the spike strips out there, they have to do it perfectly, and they have to make sure that they, you know, not only time it perfectly, but that it travels the distance. What's kind of complicating things is that this suspect is staying in the middle of the freeway, so that's, you know, more distance that spike strip has to travel across. The officer might kind of have to put themselves in danger and walk out into one of the lanes to be able to get it out there in front of them. So that it's pretty difficult. Even at these slower speeds. That's typically the only time that we see spike strip attempts is when we see these slower speeds or really, really light traffic conditions. I mean, we're almost on the edge of pit maneuver territory if they wanted to with this open freeway and the slower speeds. We'll see if they want to get that aggressive on this one. But, you know, like Mike was saying, some of these smaller agencies, especially in the Inland Empire, they will take it as far as they need to if they're, you know, really willing to commit to it. And this is not the first time that we've seen Fontana PD follow an allegedly stolen vehicle far to the west. We'll just see how far west or north or south, perhaps, just how far this one goes.
Yeah, and as Desmond was talking about a possible pit maneuver, it is possible on the freeway, though it is very rare that we have seen one, but certainly done. And it begs the question, will Fontana Police Department, are they actually equipped for it? You know, the CHP, they're ready to go at any time with any other vehicles to do a pit maneuver, but other smaller agencies, as we were talking about with Mike at the desk, they may not be equipped with the actual vehicle to do a pit maneuver. And then it begs the question, will the CHP then jump in again and help them along the way as they were with the spike strip? You know, also with the pit maneuver, them possibly being armed, if that is the case, if this was a carjacking and there is a gun inside this car, that certainly increases the security level, the dangerous level for, you know, officers who are willing or wanting to do this pit maneuver, right, Mike?
Yeah, there are several agencies that won't
or any really crazy erratic movements like sometimes we see with some of these suspects. I think they're just, I don't know, the way they're going, this is kind of looking like one of those ones where they're just trying to drag it out as long as they can possibly get this one to go, not making any real serious attempt to get away from the authorities. I mean, we're not even close to the speed limit here. You know, a lot of times we'll see suspects with the super crazy driving, even driving like in reverse, like we saw the other night with that stolen vehicle pursuit. So we do know that there is only the driver in the car. That's now what's being broadcast there over the radios. So we'll just see if another spike strip attempt is in the offing. And even if they do manage to land that spike strip, that's not necessarily going to end this pursuit immediately. We've seen so many pursuits go on for a long time after the tires have been spiked, remarkably long, how well some of these vehicles can hold up. And by the way, this is a Toyota pickup truck, one of the most reliable vehicles on earth. And, you know, we have certainly seen some of these go the distance even after they lose their tires.
Yeah, that's certainly true that we have seen that. I mean, we have seen pursuits go on metal. I mean, just, you know, sparks flying out of the, you know, what's left of the tire, if you can even say that. But as you can see here, a pursuit continues as we go under this overpass here on the freeway, on the 10 freeway, still going west. Yes, that's right. We're going west right now. Mike has something to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're finally in a definitely pit-approved speed range here. and they appear to be actively choosing to not do that. These would be the perfect conditions of that. We dip down to the 20s, even, you know, right now we're at 23, 25 miles an hour. There is nobody around him on the freeway. There is no reason not to from a situational standpoint. So obviously it seems like they have made that decision that that's not something they want to do because we are in perfect territory to do that right now.
Which, Mike, that could go back to what we were talking about earlier with this possible gun that this suspect might have.
Right. Again, yeah, they don't want to flip him around. And again, we don't know the nature of the crime, right? We don't know how violent this carjacking was. They're obviously privy to a ton more information than we are. We know the official want is carjacking, but what happened during the course of that carjacking? Do they know who this person is? Do they have a lengthy violent record? Those are all things that is being considered by the sergeant or the lieutenant calling the shots here for Fontana PD.
That's right. And as far as we know, one person inside this Toyota Tacoma pickup truck tonight that was, we believe, stolen in the Fontana area. As far as we know, this started in the Fontana area, and the Fontana Police Department still in pursuit tonight, not relinquishing it to the CHP, although the CHP is lending a hand. Desmond, did you see something, another spike strip?
There may have been a spike strip underneath the freeway there, because I just noticed the suspect kind of swerve at the last second. We'll see what kind of radio traffic we hear on that one. If there, and I saw that unit that was also looked like he was parked in those collector lanes over on the far right lanes there. So may have been a spike strip attempt there. I just kind of saw some dust fly up and the suspect try to get out of the way. I guess we'll see here momentarily if we start to see any of these tires deflating.
I mean, it's just incredible that, you know, they can do this on the freeway because, as you know, as Desmond was talking about, it's not an easy process to take out those spike strips and throw them out and then wait for that person and then bring it back in. You know, as Desmond was talking about, it can pose a big danger for officers who are doing this because they do have to get out of the way. And obviously, there's not a lot of traffic on the freeway. Thank goodness for that. So that's giving officers a lot more advantage right now. Mike, at the desk with this update.
Yeah, so I'm playing back the video that Desmond was just looking at from where that spike strip was, and it does not look like the spike made contact. It looked like the CHP officer had it kind of covering the outer two lanes, and then when Desmond saw him swerve, that's when the driver noticed it and you know, pulled around it. And that is why doing a spike strip on the freeway is notoriously hard. You're trying to cover sometimes, I think this is 5 or 6 lanes, Des, with one set of spikes that it just isn't going to cover the whole thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And you know, even
absolutely much easier to do on the street.
Yeah, and that was the second attempt, correct, Mike? That was the second attempt for the spike strip by CHP. Yeah, so this driver, once again, skirting around that second spike strip. We're told by officials this might have started as a carjacking there in Fontana PD, behind this suspect, possibly armed with a gun. We're still waiting on official word about that. I want to go back up to Sky Cow with Desmond. It seems like, Desmond, that we've had times that this truck was going a little faster, but then they keep slowing down and now staying in the middle lane.
Yeah, we've primarily been in the middle lanes here, and this suspect, you know, they definitely seem to have no interest in driving very fast at all. This is definitely on the slower end of the spectrum as far as these pursuits go, which, you know, could definitely give the authorities time to set up for a spike strip maneuver. That's an advantage for the authorities. But still, as we've seen now 2 different times, a very difficult thing for them to pull off as we are making our way here near downtown. So we're going to have a decision coming up here if we're going to stick with this is where the 10 turns into the northbound 101 going into downtown LA, and then they'll also have the option to hit either the north or southbound side of the 5. As I look around, the 5 freeway is pretty much open. Might be a little bit of congestion on the 101 if northbound, like there pretty much always is headed through downtown LA, that they may have to contend with. We will see here momentarily what the suspect decides to do. It looks like they're going to be going for the northbound 101 through downtown Los Angeles.
All right, Desmond, thanks. We want to go over to the mic. We want to go over to the desk with Mike. You've got some information now?
Yeah, my colleague Orlando at the assignment desk just spoke with Fontana PD, and we've really narrowed down exactly what happened here. 7:15 p.m. tonight at a gas station at the corner of Citrus and Merrill, a driver, a person that owns this truck, was pumping gas in their car when the suspect, according to Fontana PD, came up with a gun and carjacked the truck at gunpoint. Now, we're told that the victim was not injured in this. No shots were fired. But again, carjacked the victim at a gas pump at gunpoint. The truck then took off. Obviously, the victim called 911. They were able to get the license plate in the system, and Fontana PD officers spotted the truck, were able to get behind it, and here's where we're at now. So now we know that this crime, this alleged crime, did happen tonight, and as we were kind of talking about, possibly at a gas pump. Now that we know exactly where it happened, and again, a gun was used, which also explains the hesitancy of Fontana to do this pit maneuver.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely broadens the story, doesn't it, as to why they're choosing to do what they're doing and not doing, obviously, for the reasons being the fact that this person is armed. As far as we know, one person inside this car, and we're talking about someone who can, do something like that, capable of, taking someone's car, pointing a gun at that person, again, at gunpoint, and then taking that car. Who knows what else they're capable of. So officers definitely taking their time with this one, and definitely the Fontana Police Department not giving it up.
Yeah, Mike, which also explains why CHP is helping, not taking over the chase, but they are helping Fontana Police with those spike strip.
Right. I would definitely say that because of the severity of the crime now, CHP is going to be a little bit more willing to help out. I think that if this was your run-of-the-mill stolen car, or if this was a DUI driver, I don't know that CHP would want to get involved, since they have that pretty strict policy. But since we're talking about an armed, violent crime, that's probably why CHP is a little bit more willing to help out.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go back up to Desmond Shaw. Desmond, it looks like we're inching closer and closer to downtown. This could become a very dangerous situation, especially now that we have confirmation that this driver who allegedly carjacked someone at a gas station there in Fontana has a gun.
That's right, and so that explains, like Mike said, why they're hesitant to do the pit maneuver, and that also explains why Fontana really is sticking with this one and why they're not handing it off. You had a potentially violent crime or violent attempted use of a gun anyway in their city, so they're wanting to stick with this one from end to end. And now we are getting into downtown Los Angeles. Might hit a little bit of traffic here as we come up on the 110, getting through the shuffle. You notice there, Fontana, they had to kind of, as they were coming in, you had lanes that come in from the northbound 101 south of the 10 freeway. They kind of come in on the left, so they had to kind of dart over to the left to cut off that traffic that was merging onto this section of the roadway, just to make sure that they didn't have any innocent people potentially get involved in this pursuit. And you see how many units we have involved here in this one as well. I count at least half a dozen that are down there in this one, as we are nearly at the 110 freeway. And as we zoom back in here on the speeds, only 30 miles an hour. Actually, kind of surprised, see if we're going to hit any kind of a backup at all as we approach that 110, almost at the 4-level interchange. And if the suspect wanted to transition to the 110, they could hit either the northbound or southbound 110, but they're keeping it to the left of the freeway. So it looks like, barring any last-second maneuver, actually we just passed the option right there. So we are on our way to Hollywood now, northbound on the 101, and the freeway up ahead doesn't look like it's going to give the suspect any trouble as far as traffic goes.
Gotcha.
And you always wonder where this person is going. Do they have a plan? Do they have a destination where they're going to stop and maybe ditch this vehicle, or get away with a friend? Who knows if they're in the car right now talking to someone about it? But it is really curious, because sometimes they don't know where they're going. They have no plan, and sometimes they're going to a familiar place.
Especially when we start crossing counties, right? When we get this far from where it started. You always are curious what their deal is, what their plan is. I'm listening to some CHP radio traffic. The benefit of CHP not being the pursuing agency is they're able to do a lot more traffic control for Fontana. So we're listening to some of the CHP units that are well behind these Fontana units running a traffic break. So, surprisingly, you've seen before where cars will try to pass the pursuit, especially at these low speeds. So CHP's back there running a break. So he doesn't have a lot of traffic ahead of him, but he is creating traffic behind him.
And once again, this all started at 7:15 in the Fontana area. The driver, the owner of this truck, around 7:15, was there at the gas station pumping gas. Mike, talk about how police were able to catch up with this suspect after he carjacked the person with the truck and then hit the road. And you're saying no gunshots were actually fired during the carjacking?
Yeah, that's right, Chauncey. The victim, rather, was pumping gas, putting gas into this truck, which I also want to point out is concerning, because now we think this truck probably has a decent amount of gas in it if the guy was putting gas in it at the time. So that's an issue. But yeah, that's when the suspect allegedly came up at gunpoint and stole the truck from the driver here. The driver then called 911, and presumably he knew his license plate, was able to relay that to police. And if not, gas stations are just covered in security cameras. It wouldn't take long at all for the gas station employee to play back that tape or recording and look at the license plate to give that to police if they didn't already have it. And so responding officers were able to spot the pickup truck, confirm the plate, and the chase has been on ever since. And I'm just going to look back really quick at the Fontana police helicopter, Eagle 1, which is still over this in Hollywood, by the way. They have been consistently on the 10 the entire time. So it looks like this person did what he did, got on the freeway, and has not switched off of the 10 freeway for this entire chase, all the way through the San Bernardino County area into LA, through downtown. And now the only reason we're not on the 10 is because he ran out of the 10 and we're on the 101.
Yeah, it's true. And you wonder when this person is going to stop, if they will stop at any point before they run out of gas, because as Mike mentioned, this all happened at a gas station, and it's unclear if that person filled up all the way before they were actually carjacked, but it could be very well possible. If you're just joining us here on KCAL News at 8, this is breaking news of a stolen pickup truck pursuit. The Fontana Police Department in pursuit all the way from the Inland Empire now into Los Angeles. As you can see, we are on the 101 North in Westlake now with the Fontana Police Department and the chopper still overhead with the CHP assisting. As we saw moments ago, we saw a couple spike strip attempts, and we say attempts because there were a few as far as we know, but they did not make contact.
And once again, this has been at an hour. We're here at an hour on this chase now. 7:15 is when police say this carjacking happened at the gas station. The suspect pointing a gun at the driver of this truck while they were pumping gas and then taking off in the truck. Police, Fontana police, able to track down this suspect in the truck. We haven't seen a lot of high speeds here. We want to go back up to SkyCal's Desmond Shaw as to your vantage point and also as to what we may be running to as we inch closer and closer to downtown.
Well, we are well past downtown now. We're on our way. We'll be in Hollywood soon. I can tell you what we're going to run into in SkyCal there as we get a great shot of, I believe that's the CHP chopper there going through our shot, is we are going to be running into a pretty decent amount of wind, unfortunately, in the San Fernando Valley. My intrepid pilot, Dylan, and I were really hoping that this pursuit was not going to head up towards the very bumpy valley. We will be sticking with it regardless. But, you know, here we go, northbound 101. No traffic really to speak of. We've been seeing CHP actually holding some on-ramps back, and some really unfortunate people who are, you know, you could say no good deed goes unpunished, as they're following the law and stopping. They see the red blue lights coming, and they're stopping to let the pursuit go by them. Unfortunately now, folks like this truck right here are going to be stuck in some pretty bad traffic because this person's only going 30 miles an hour, and CHP is holding all the lanes back. It's definitely going to back up the traffic here for everyone that is leaving downtown. Don't want to widen out too much, but trust me, there is definitely a backup there now extending coming out of downtown. And it's just going to continue as long as this person continues to disobey the police and just kind of drag this out as much as they want. If they're going to stick with the freeway and not make any changes to the freeway at all and just kind of stick to this lane, this is going to lead us to the northbound 170, the other half of the Hollywood freeway, and then that'll go up towards the 5, and then we'll see. You know, it's almost have to wonder now if this person is just going to take this all the way to the Central Valley with a full tank of gas just to drag it out as long as possible.
Which we have also seen oftentimes.
Where pursuits go to die, the Cajon or the Tajon Pass.
Yeah, it's true. Castaic, yep, it's true. Well, as we continue to follow this here on KCAL News at 8, again, this is breaking news. This all started in Fontana at Citrus and Merrill at a gas station there. Just after 7 o'clock tonight, someone was carjacked, and this is the car that we're looking at. That person alone inside this car, and the Fontana Police Department not relinquishing it tonight to the CHP because they obviously want this person caught, and Mike believes perhaps because this person committed that crime inside their city, right, Mike?
Yeah, lots of times when we have these semi-smaller agencies, Fontana's a decent-sized agency, though, but you do see this where they don't want to give it up. And as Desmond mentioned, specifically in San Bernardino County, we have seen San Bernardino sheriff's deputies chase people all the way to the west end of the San Fernando Valley. I mean, those guys really don't like to give up chases, but a lot of these agencies are in that same boat. And You know, I think that a lot of these times they know that they don't want to give this up, and I would imagine, are sometimes concerned that if they hand it off, maybe the other agency they hand it to won't be as aggressive as them. Maybe they won't chase it until they get this person into custody. So I think there's a little bit of that if they're in control of the chase, that they know that they will be there till the resolution of it and hopefully take this person into custody, and hopefully safely, because they'll pull over. But especially in LA County law enforcement, a little less tough on chases lately because of everything that's gone on. So when they come into LA County, Fontana PD may not want to give it up because they could be worried that one of the local agencies here wouldn't chase it the way they would.
Yeah, and as we've been talking about, you know, limited with officers' capabilities of what they can do to stop this car, right, Mike?
Right. Yeah, right. Because again, if this person, now we are confident that they are armed based on what Fontana PD is telling us, they're going to sit here and try to continue to do these spike strips. And unfortunately for Fontana, they also have to rely on CHP for that. Of course, they've got a great working relationship with CHP, but again, it's not their agency. So right, they're banking on hoping CHP isn't doing other things. And actually, as I'm listening to this, I can hear the CHP dispatcher saying negative on spikes. We don't have anybody to come do a spike right now. So those are the kind of challenges that they're dealing with being out of their city. They can't direct their units to get ahead of this, to put spikes down. They're relying on CHP, who has other things going on in Southern California. They're a big agency. They've got stuff to deal with as well.
As this pursuit keeps on moving through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, also talking about back to the beginning at 7:15 when this alleged carjacking happened here at the gas station, you're hearing word that the driver is okay and no shots were fired, right?
Yeah, correct. The Fontana Police Department tells us that nobody was injured in that whole thing. I'm sure very shaken up, but that they were not injured, no shots were fired, which is the good news. But, you know, I'm sure this person now stranded at the gas station, maybe somebody came and picked him up, but knowing now that his truck is still involved in this very lengthy pursuit, almost an hour and a half after the truck was stolen.
Yeah, and it's unclear why they're going so slow, as we often see on freeways, especially. We see freeway speeds plus, right? I mean, usually it's that plus area that we're talking about with these chases, but it seems that when, you know, the speeds are low like this, and in any other case, they might be able to attempt a pit maneuver to turn this car around and get it to stop. But in a case like this, when the person they know for a fact is armed, there was a carjacking involved, they held a gun to a person's head possibly tonight and said, give me your car. So under those circumstances, it's going to be a different situation for those officers, because they can also put themselves in danger by doing so.
Yeah, and I just was mapping how far the gas station was from the freeway, and it is just a little under 2 miles from where this happened to the freeway, and all this driver had to do was get on Citrus and drive straight south for 2 miles and hit the freeway. So you think about what this person has done. They've made a total of 2 right turns during this whole chase. One to get out of the parking lot of the gas station and one to get on the freeway. And that's all we've been doing the whole time.
Wow.
And Mike, it seems like that Fontana police got on this suspect's tracks pretty fast from that gas station.
Right, yeah, especially considering that it's only 2 miles. I mean, that's not, if the person's driving this slow the whole time, it gave them a little bit more time. But yeah, only 2 miles from the freeway. And let me just look and see how far within the city of Fontana. It's kind of in the middle of Fontana, but kudos to those officers for getting towards the gas station pretty quickly to be able to find this car.
Yeah, let's go back upstairs to Desmond Shaw live in SkyCal. We are in the Hollywood Hills area now, right, Desmond?
Yep, Susie and Chauncey, we are leaving Hollywood now. This is the end of the Highland on-ramp there, where it comes up on the left end of the freeway, one of the busiest ramps in Los Angeles. I'm sure we've all experienced that wonderful ramp many times at rush hour. And so, you know, it is CHP that is in the back right now that is running the traffic brake to hold everyone back from that. You know, it's just kind of crazy, as someone who has logged many tens of thousands of miles in LA. You know, the difference between 5 seconds time could be the difference between losing a half hour or more of your life. The people that you just saw that was zoomed ahead of this to get ahead of this suspect are now going to get to wherever they're trying to get to in a reasonable amount of time. Whereas the folks that yielded now, they are going to be stuck in this nasty little backup behind the suspect, depending on where they decide to go from here. We will be coming up to the Hollywood split soon, where they can continue for onto the 170 north, or a transition to the Ventura Freeway section of the 101, northbound 101. Sometimes we call it the westbound 101 to differentiate the two as we head through the San Fernando Valley. So we will see it. It looked like I saw a little bit of debris kicking up back there. I think the suspect might have hit some minor debris there in the roadway. I was just stopping to see what that was, but didn't look like it was anything major. And so now we are officially in the San Fernando Valley. Fortunately for us, well, the wind hasn't knocked us too bad. Hopefully that continues to be the case up here for SkyCal.
Yeah, this person obviously hasn't run out of gas yet, and they're going awfully slow. That could be helping as well. It's not going to be a gas guzzler for sure, just because of that reason. And this person taking things slow on the freeway, and the Fontana Police Department right behind them, as Desmond was talking about, the CHP helping out tonight in various ways with running traffic brakes, as well as putting down spike strips. And they're attempting to do that several times, but looks like so far they have not been able to do so. And as they move along this freeway now on the 101 freeway, the 10 freeway before, the CHP obviously, as Mike was saying, they have a job to do, and it's not specifically this one.
Right.
And spike strips might not be possible when the Fontana Police Department is asking for them right then.
Right, and the only good thing that, well, not the only, but one of the good things that Fontana has going for them is because of the ground that we've covered, we're continuously entering new CHP areas. So we've gone through Baldwin Park, we've gone through East LA, we've gone through downtown, and now, or the central CHP office, and now we're coming into the West Valley CHP office as we enter the San Fernando Valley. So Fontana is going to have a whole another set of CHP units that they can try to get to bring, knock on their door and say, hey, you want some, come play with some spike strips, to try to get this to come to an end. The other thing that I was looking at, Des, I think his hazard lights have been on the entire time that we've been looking at it, which is also kind of interesting to me as well.
Yes, you're right. Sometimes we see this really silly stuff with these pursuit suspects. If it's the hazards on the whole time, or a turn signal, or the wiper blades, or whatever, that is, definitely the case. I'm kind of getting the impression that this person is just kind of zoning out right now, and this is, kind of what we might qualify as kind of a joyride pursuit, not to make too light of it, because it was taken under serious circumstances. But, we've just got these low speeds with the driver just seems to kind of be zoning out. I mean, other than dodging a couple of spike strip attempts, not changing lanes, not doing anything crazy, not going 100 miles an hour, not zigging and zagging all over the place. I don't know that I've seen a single lane change during this entire pursuit, other than to, try to evade those spike strips. So center lane right here is going to take us to the northbound 101, I believe. Those two lanes to the left are what transition to the 170 section of the Hollywood Freeway, which would take us to the 5. So we're going to find out here very quickly if we're going to be headed northbound on the 170 or northwestbound on the 101.
And Desmond, I was just about to talk about the lane changes. As a suspect, same lane, that middle lane, all the way through. Going back over to Mike now, historically, allegedly this was a very violent carjacking involving a gun with the owner of this car. The ones that I've covered here so far, only been here a few weeks, but it seems like when it's under those circumstances, the suspect normally drives a little faster and doing everything to get away from police. But it seems like this suspect is just kind of cruising the whole time. I
was going to mention that, Chauncey, you're right. Generally, a violent crime leads to a pretty wild chase.
Right.
It's not usually, give me your car, I've got a gun, and now I'm going to drive 40 miles an hour for an hour and a half. That's usually not the case when we cover these chases. So it does make you, we can never get into the mind of a pursuit suspect here and know why they're doing what they're doing, but it does make you even more curious that when they go to that length to commit, allegedly commit that kind of violent crime, their behavior during that crime doesn't really seem to match their behavior during this chase, which is different. And you know what? It looks like CHP may be done running those brakes, because now we're getting into that situation. You have that civilian car there to the right of the frame that looked like they were trying to inch up, right there on the top there, trying to inch up and get past the police cars, which is always just so curious to me why people do that. But, oh, there you go. Now you got a CHP unit back there running it. And this is, again, as we're entering a different office for CHP. We're in their West Valley office now.
We are, a good 60-some miles away from Fontana, where this all started tonight. So not only the CHP officers who have been helping along the way from different agencies, or different jurisdictions, I should say, but from also the Fontana Police Department, who has not given this one up. They want to get this guy themselves. They have asked the CHP to run those traffic breaks. They've asked them to provide spike strips when they can. And we have seen several of those attempts that have not been successful, unfortunately. But this person has been driving at this rate, under 50 miles on the freeway for a while now. And, I know a lot of people at home are going, just pit this guy, just push him from the back and make him turn around and stop this car, and let's just stop this chase. But really, officers, they have a very methodical operation when they do all this, and they're all in communication right now as to what they want to do next and what they're going to attempt and what they can and cannot. Obviously, with this guy armed and this person with a gun, certainly the limited options are what we're talking about.
Well, and they're also going to weigh risk versus reward. We're
Absolutely.
going 50 miles an hour on the freeway. CHP is doing a good job of controlling the traffic behind him. What is the benefit? I mean, risk versus reward of you pit him out and he's got that gun and something terrible happens. Or we sit here, we wait him out, we let him run out of gas, and we just let this thing kind of play out in a slower manner. If this person was driving at extremely high speeds, super endangering the public, not that this isn't doing that, but, weaving in and out of traffic, those kinds of things, then, that's when you might start to see the more aggressive moves to bring this to an end. But somebody who's driving 35 miles an hour with no traffic near them, why not? Why not let them and just let them run out of fuel and be done with this eventually?
Again, with a gun involved, that is that careful, methodical operation that we're talking about, because it is so delicate when you think about a person who knows what kind of state of mind they're in right now, and with a gun, what they could possibly do to an officer.
And we talked about the police strategy too, Mike. You were explaining this. Whenever you put those spike strips down and the car hits it, it tends to turn that car around, and now you have the suspect facing those officers who is possibly armed with a gun.
Right, and again, if this is sorry, I was listening to the radio really quick. Especially when you're talking about a situation that this is what they call a fresh crime, right? This isn't something that happened a couple days ago. They probably have no idea who this suspect is. They have no idea who this person is. And so they probably are not able to run any kind of background information on them. Do they know their history? Do they know if they've had violent tendencies before? When all of those are unknown, and as you mentioned, Chauncey, doing a pit maneuver would have that suspect facing the officers, they're gonna take their time and let this play out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been going on and playing out for more than an hour now. If you're just joining us here on KCAL News at 8, almost approaching the 9 o'clock hour for KCAL News at 9 with Pat Harvey and Juan Fernandez. But tonight we're talking about this stolen pickup truck pursuit, and this has been breaking news for the good part of an hour now. The Fontana Police Department in chase tonight, and they are not giving this one up. It all started with a carjacking in their city at Citrus and Merrill at a gas station around 7:15. A man who was pumping gas was carjacked by this person we believe is driving this car tonight, and they took off on the freeway, as Mike was saying, just about 2 miles off the freeway there from the gas station there, so it was not a difficult move for this person to get on the freeway. And we have been on the freeway this entire time. Usually, we see them exiting a few times, maybe on a surface street, just to ditch officers and maybe test them and see how much they can, get away with. But this person has been on the freeway, adamant about staying on the freeway, only changed once onto the 101 from the 10 freeway, and this is where we still are tonight. And in Sherman Oaks now, again, this all started, a good 60 plus miles away in the city of Fontana tonight.
We want to go back over to Mike Rogers. And Mike, once again, this all starting with that carjacking at the gas station and how police were able to get with this suspect and track him down pretty quick. You're talking about 2 miles away from that gas station. Yeah,
and look what, Des, what's happening on, just sorry, really quick, Chauncey, the east side of the south side of the 101 there was all jammed up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like there was a little fender bender there, and CHP was running a traffic brake to try to get them off of the freeway. So,
well, I'm sure this will make that better.
Unrelated issue there. Yeah, right.
So anyway, Chauncey, only 2 miles from the gas station to the on-ramp of the 10 freeway where presumably this happened. So that's not long at all for this victim to call 911, dispatchers to get officers out there, and officers to be able to spot this truck, get behind it, and try to initiate a stop. You probably had an officer that maybe was already in the area, or one that was already on the freeway, or something like that. But even Eagle One, you know, good old Eagle One has been over this the entire time. They're the Fontana PD helicopter now in Sherman Oaks, but even there, I'm looking at where they started following this, and they were, they were over the freeway maybe 2 miles from where, a mile from where the suspect presumably got on the freeway. So it didn't take long for the helicopter to get there either.
Yeah, it's true. And, you know, Desmond, if you can just kind of run us through, you know, where we've been and the slow speeds that we've been going at, but covering quite a bit of distance.
Yeah, I mean, we are really just cruising through, well, several different counties now. We may be headed for our third county, San Bernardino, LA County, and Ventura County. If we continue at this clip, we've passed a bunch of different freeways. We're on the 10. We've basically been on kind of the same stretch of asphalt the entire time because the suspect has just kind of been sticking to the middle lane, and whatever freeway that happens to, that stretch of concrete happens to take the suspect, that seems to be where they're headed. That went West 10, North 101, and then Northwest 101 into the San Fernando Valley. We'll be coming up to the 405 here pretty shortly. So we have covered, you know, a lot of distance. But these trucks, and considering that this was taken, you know, at a gas station, going this slow, and if the tank was close to full, you know, this truck has got a long distance to go. I mean, they could make it all the way to San Luis Obispo or even, you know, further potentially. So we'll just have to see how far that goes. Unfortunately, you know, we would not have enough fuel to do that, but we would take this probably as far as the west end of Ventura, up towards, once you get north of Ventura there, it unfortunately gets a little bit too dark for us. We'll just have to see how this all plays out, but just kind of looking at the way that this is shaping up right now. Well, let's see. Here's the option for the 405, and okay, it looks like we may be making the transition here to either the north or south 405. So let's see what the suspect's next move is going to be. This lane here on the left will take them to either the north or south 405 here. So to West LA or north towards the 5 freeway. We'll see. And we'll see how, you know, CHP gets in and coordinates the traffic break with all of this. So, and it's northbound. We are headed northbound 405 towards Van Nuys, Granada Hills, the 118, and the 5 freeway.
All right, and now we're running into traffic in which we haven't seen here during this chase, actually having traffic. Mike Rogers, from the beginning, we talked about with this suspect getting on the freeway. Seems like the entire time, mostly alone with no traffic, staying right there in the middle lane. Yeah,
and already a kind of different situation there on the 405. And, you know, this is the first, what seems to be conscious decision he's made to make a lane change, switch freeways, you know, what have you here. The entire time he's been on the 10. The 10 forced him onto the 101 because the 10 ended in downtown LA. This is the first time we've actually seen him change lanes and actively choose a kind of a different freeway to get onto the 405, now going on to the 405 North.
And Desmond, what are we talking about here when we look ahead as to where this suspect may be going as far as the traffic that we might run into?
Traffic is pretty light up ahead. There's definitely quite a few cars, but considering that, you know, they're only going 45 miles an hour, I mean, all of the traffic ahead is going much quicker. So the suspect isn't even really likely to run into any other cars going this direction, you know, even at this late hour. Of course, it is still the 405, so you're still going to see, you know, quite a few vehicles out there moving at full speed. So you've got people going 65. He's only going 40. So that's why it looks like they have a wide open empty freeway, and then when you also have CHP holding everybody back. So, you know, this could be another good opportunity for a spike strip with all of that empty asphalt in between, or concrete, I should say, this section of the 405. We'll see if that is in the offing. The 405 connects with the 118, giving us options for Simi Valley to the west or east towards Pacoima and Somar, or if they continue with the 405, that'll merge onto the northbound 5. And so there is still the possibility that the suspect is going to head towards the Newhall Pass and points farther to the north.
Okay, Desmond Shaw, hi. It's Pat Harvey joining you for the 9 o'clock hour here on KCAL. And as you've been listening to Desmond and Mike talk about this stolen pickup truck pursuit with an armed driver that authorities obviously consider dangerous simply because he is armed. Want to pick up the coverage with where he is exactly right now. Desmond, I think you said 405 north. He transitioned from the 101 freeway, which, as you mentioned, you named a number of options that this driver has at this hour. Doesn't seem to be driving very fast from what I'm seeing here. I'm just getting at the desk here. It seems like he's even driving below the speed limit.
Yep, it has really just been a slow kind of a cruise along here as we are northbound on the 405. This has been the pace all the way from Fontana. So if you've ever, wondered how long it takes to get from Fontana to Van Nuys, we have been on this for, I think about 40 minutes now on this one. So actually, my pilot Dylan saying getting pretty close to an hour now on this pursuit. With the hazard lights, they've been on the entire time. Been kind of one of those strange ones. The character of a pursuit can change at any moment, though. There's times where suspects go really, really slow, and all of a sudden they slam on that gas pedal, and everything changes, or other times where they're going 100 miles an hour, and then they pull over, and it's over. You just never know what's going to happen from 1 second to the next, but Fontana is saying we are going to take this as far as we have to take it. I guess, who knows, maybe we'll see who runs, if it's the suspect in the Toyota or if it's Fontana PD's cruisers that are out here. I mean, they do have quite a few. There's at least 6 of them that are in tow with CHP back there running the traffic brake. So we just crossed Sherman Way right now. Northbound 405 will have the suspect will have another decision to make once they get to the 118 freeway, Pat.
Well, you know what? They certainly have committed quite a bit of law enforcement out there. You're talking about PD and talking about the CHP, and the fact that the CHP is involved because obviously it's on the freeway, but seem like they may be more inclined to do something to try to stop this. And you mentioned that they've done a break, so they're keeping traffic behind. What does it look like ahead, Des?
It's pretty empty up ahead by virtue of the suspect driving so slowly. Traffic was moving at pretty much full speed, so you've got everyone up ahead, way ahead now, going 65 miles an hour, and no one being allowed to get in front of the suspect. So it, kind of creates this illusion of a magnificently wide open 405, like I'm sure all of us wish we could experience on, pretty much any other hour of the day here.
That's right.
So that's what we're looking at right now. There were a couple of spike strip attempts earlier on the 10. One, I believe, in Rosemead, and then another one near Alhambra or City Terrace. Neither spike strip was successful. We haven't heard about any other imminent attempts right now. As Mike was saying last hour, it's kind of dependent on what CHP officers are available and if they want to partake in that, because all the Fontana PD units are, actively in the pursuit. So we'll see. But again, another decision coming up here in moments as the suspect gets up to the 118 freeway.
All right, Mike, I see you over there nodding your head.
Yeah, Pat, you were talking about all the resources that kind of committed to this, and we are in the north end of Van Nuys now, just to the east of Van Nuys Airport. And I want, if our director, Mike, can show my computer here, I just want to show you the trail from the Fontana PD helicopter. It's Eagle 1. It's this one right here. And if we zoom out, you see just how long Eagle 1 has been following this chase all along the 10 freeway, the 101 freeway, all the way back into here in Fontana. They took off out of San Bernardino Airport. For reference, though, the chase or the stolen vehicle, the gas station, the carjacking happened right here at Merrill and Citrus. And then that driver, we believe, came down Citrus to the 10 freeway, and it did not take the Fontana PD ship long at all to be able to catch up with it. And they have been in tow the entire time, zigging and zagging. You see them making these loops here because of the slow speeds that this car is going, or the truck rather, is going through the downtown area. And now you've got the CHP helicopter right here that's also been kind of following them the whole time, Pat. But Fontana not willing to give us up from the air or the ground.
Okay, well, they have their reasons for doing that, Mike, which again, we have seen time and time again, even in situations like this. This is a stolen pickup truck. The driver is armed. But if they have not put anyone else in danger, pulled that weapon on anyone, sometimes they will pull off. Right, if it's dangerous.
And to be honest, I wonder if that's a concern of Fontana PD and why Fontana PD hasn't given it up. Other agencies may not chase as hard as they will, especially in San Bernardino County. Those agencies generally will be involved in pursuits longer than some of the LA County agencies will.
And the fact that they know that this person is armed, Fontana PD may have information that we don't. They may have pulled that weapon and to actually get this truck. We don't know that for sure.
And officers are really good at knowing their frequent flyers, right? They're really good at like, oh, I've seen this guy before. I've dealt with him before. I know his deal. And that could also play a role in this. So obviously, as you mentioned, Pat, a lot we don't know.
You know what, Des? I don't know. I almost thought that this cruiser is speeding up here, trying to get closer to this truck, right? That's what it looks like.
Yeah, it does. It does kind of look like it. Yeah, I mean, maybe if they, you can actually see him. Looks like it was just adjusting his light right there. That they control with a little mechanism right inside, trying to get a look through the rear compartment to see if they can see, what the suspect is doing. They might want to see, the demeanor of this person, or if they're waving a gun around or something like that. See if they could take the opportunity with these slower speeds to do a little bit of recon. So we are crossing the 118 now, or preparing to anyway, as we're coming up to Devonshire. And unless the suspect makes any sudden movements, they're going to be continuing northbound 405, and then they'll be dumped out onto the northbound 5 headed towards the Santa Clarita Valley. Just listening to a little bit of CHP radio traffic here, talking just about the traffic breaks that they're coordinating back in there. As I widen out, you can see all of the units that are involved in this one, and still all of that wide open pavement for the suspect as they continue. And now as we cross Devonshire, the next junction will be at the 118 as we make our way into Mission Hills. And on this trajectory, it looks like we may be headed for Somar and beyond.
Guys, I'm sure you probably talked about this last hour. Is this vehicle too big to try a pit maneuver or not? I mean, we've seen things happen before that we didn't expect.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I think they would do this. It is, a little bit more of a high-profile vehicle, but I wouldn't think that they wouldn't do a pit. I think if the reason they're not doing a pit is probably because he's armed.
Because of the weapon.
Yeah.
All right, just wondering about that because they sure are getting close enough.
We're really slowing down now.
Yeah, well, down to 20 miles an hour and back up again. So I don't know. Some of these suspects, they really like to taunt CHP when they are running away from them. I did see they rolled down the window and had a little bit of a hand motion there for a moment, and then looked like they rolled the window back up. And so, yeah.
What do you think? Motioning to officers?
Yeah, it just kind of, I don't know if he was just kind of waving his hand out the window or what exactly that was. There you see that CHP unit there. So indeed, we are crossing the 118. So there's a CHP unit that's getting ready to come in, and they're going to take over that traffic break. I heard them talking about that on the radio. So it sounds like they're switching out units and putting in a fresh set of wheels in there to run the traffic break to make sure that no one gets involved in this in any way. So we are now, unless the suspect gets off the freeway, we will be hitting the northbound 5, and then we have the junction of the 5 and the 14, Newhall Pass. Will we head to Canyon Country, or will we head to Santa Clarita? Oh, there's also the 210 West if they wanted to bend back around and double back out of Somar back towards Pasadena. That would also be an option as we make our way to the north.
Let me ask you a question, Desmond and Mike. Has this driver been driving this speed limit most of the time? So we haven't seen any really fast or reckless driving? No,
I mean, that's what we were kind of remarking about it. He got on the 10 freeway in Fontana and took the 10 freeway all the way into downtown. As long as we've been over it, it's been these speeds. The only reason he really got on the 101 is because the 10 ended and he had to go into downtown, and they kind of, forced him onto the 101 a little bit there. And then the only really conscious decision we saw him make was to get onto the 405 North. He actively moved over lanes to do that, but that was really the first time we actually saw that. Otherwise, he kind of had just gone with the flow and took the 10 as it merged into the 101. Obviously, the 10 continues to Santa Monica, but it just kind of pushed him up into the 101, and that's where he went. And, I also wanted to point out, Pat, Desmond mentioned you have that CHP unit that is swapping out because we've gone into different CHP areas. CHP in this is only running the break. They're not actively in this pursuit. So while CHP has the luxury of swapping their officers out to keep them from getting fatigued, these are the same Fontana PD officers that have been chasing this guy for the better part, almost 2 hours now.
And obviously determined to get this guy.
They're not going to give it up. This is something that they have said that they want to keep. The CHP has asked them a couple of times if they want them to take it over, and Fontana said, nope, this is ours, we want to stick with it.
Okay, but the fact that CHP is helping them in terms of running that break, They obviously requested for that.
They did, yeah, and because, you know, Fontana, we're obviously well away from Fontana now, so it's not like they have their officers that they can say, hey, go get ahead of the truck and lay some spike strips. They don't have that luxury, so they need that other agency that's ahead of the pursuit to be able to come in and put those spike strips down, which they've been trying to do. But we haven't seen, as Desmond mentioned, we haven't seen a spike strip since before downtown. And that's because every time they ask CHP doesn't have any officers that are close enough to get into place to put a spike strip down.
All right, because I'm looking at is that CHP right behind this vehicle?
No, right now it's Fontana.
It's Fontana right behind it. All right, well, that makes a big difference then in terms of getting out there and being able to.
That's CHP on the other side there, right there.
Trying to get ahead, passing.
Yep. So.
All right, maybe something's going to happen.
I think they're going to be running a traffic break here kind of on these. So these are the lanes at the end of the northbound 405 coming into the northbound 5. So you have that unit there who is on that other side of the split to get in so that they can kind of coordinate that extended traffic break. You have a lot of lanes on this section of the 5 right here as we get up through the 210 and the 14. I did just hear a CHP officer. I heard that the dispatcher asking, hey, is there anybody available who has a spike? And there was one who said that they are standing by with one. So we may see another attempt here coming up as we make our way now into the Newhall Pass. Again, at first will be the junction of the 210, and then you have the 14-5 split as we climb into the Newhall Pass. Let's see what the suspect decides to do here as we pass by Roxford. So has the option here for the 210 back towards the Somar on this one. Maybe getting over to the left a little bit. Let's see. It looks like they're probably going to be sticking with the North 5 here.
You know, what would be easier for law enforcement? That is a wide stretch of freeway there. What would be an option for them that they would like better in terms of sticking with the 5 or going to the 210?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Maybe I would say maybe the 210 just because it would be less congested. With the 5, you're going to have a lot of truck traffic that you're going to be dealing with. Although, because we're dealing with these really slow speeds, you know, the suspect is really kind of giving the CHP some easier options as far as spike strips go, just kind of creating a lot of wide open conditions ahead. But, you know, with the 5, if we go up past Castaic, which, well, we will not be going north of Castaic for safety reasons, but climbing the Grapevine, you know, it is a lot darker up there, you know, obviously pretty steep as well. So, I mean, you know, if CHP had to have that kind of Faustian choice, I would say that they would prefer that the suspect go 210. But they're going to be prepared no matter, you know, obviously what direction the suspect seems to go, which looks like it's going to be the northbound 5 as we pass by the 210 ramp right there.
And maybe that might hasten them in throwing down another spike strip. Yeah,
and you know, the other thing that I was going to point out, and Desmond mentioned it, if we get to Castaic, we can't go any further because of the darkness. I don't know, and Des, I'm asking you this too, I don't know that I've ever seen Fontana do night operations with Eagle One, but H-51, the CHP ship, is still there. Do you know, are they able to fly over the Grapevine there at night, or is Fontana going to lose their air support if they go that far?
I believe that they are equipped with night vision. I know that certainly LAPD is. I actually just heard them saying something about night vision, so we'll... okay, yeah, so we heard a little bit of chatter right there. So Eagle One, apparently, the one from Fontana, does not have night vision, but Dylan was hearing that the CHP does. So, you know, and that's another thing. You know, they've had not just all these resources on the ground, but they've had 2 helicopters on this one. At one point, 3 helicopters on this, but we've had at least 2 helicopters on this the entire time. So, you bet, yeah, we are on our way well into the Newhall Pass here.
All right, well, that gets pretty dicey then if that continues. As you said, that's going to make it difficult not only for us to fly, of course, but even, you know, as it gets darker, it's going to be more difficult for law enforcement as well to make some decisions as to what they can do. It's interesting to me, again, it's not lost when Desmond was kicking off how many helicopters, how many ground units are involved here. It's like, okay, they want to get something done to stop this.
So what's interesting is Eagle One, it's ironic we were just talking about them, Eagle One is Fontana PD's helicopter. They just pulled off and they're actually headed back south. That might be a fuel situation, who knows. It looks like CHP's helicopter is still with it, but you know, Des, as I'm sitting here thinking too, even though CHP can fly into the darkness, they've been up for this entire chase. They launched out of Fullerton. I don't know that they'll have the fuel to make it across the Grapevine to go land somewhere in Kern County to refuel, because they have been up for a significant amount of time as well. Oh, it looks like we're losing.
We're having a little, you back, Des? Having some difficulty there with our signal, which is not unusual. You've been hearing us talking about how difficult it is further you get up the 5 freeway. That could certainly be a transmission problem, but I can hear Desmond faintly trying to get back on the air with us. Are you back, Des?
Yeah, I think you guys got us now, Pat. Yeah, we just had to do a little. Had to switch our transmitter there. So here we go. Northbound 5 through the right up by the 14. You see those elevated carpool lanes there. So we are. Well, stick with us here. We'll have to contend with this elevated carpool lane until we get past the 14, which is right there. So indeed, the suspect sticking with the 5. They had the option there for the 210 or the 14 headed towards Canyon Country or the Antelope Valley. It is certainly trending like, unless something changes here, that this suspect is just going as far as they could possibly take this, running the truck down to empty, and you know, barring any movement here in the next few minutes, we are going to be headed towards. We're watching the suspect go up towards the Grapevine.
Okay, guys. Now we know that CHP is in a position where they're running brakes. If Fontana asked them to take over, they could do that, and if that's the case, they also have jurisdiction outside, as far as Bakersfield and beyond. Right.
Yeah. California law enforcement, the way it works is they're sworn kind of at a state level. So.
What is he doing?
Oh, go ahead, Des. Oh, they may be working on something up there.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Mike. We're just.
Yeah, some air traffic. There's a lot. I can tell you there is a lot of air traffic up there. There is CHP. There's all the news helicopters up there. So Desmond's dealing with some congested airspace for sure. But what I was going to point out, Pat, yeah, the Fontana PD can certainly make the arrest outside of their city limits. They have that power and ability to do so. And if for whatever reason that they didn't feel comfortable with it, CHP has been there the whole time and can certainly, step in and officiate that arrest for them if they needed to.
Yeah, because we've seen where they can change out on any given through any given jurisdiction, and the CHP is far as wide as far as California is concerned. So it doesn't matter where he goes. If CHP wants to get involved, they certainly will.
And I was just kind of looking through the number of CHP offices that we've transitioned through from Fontana. That's the San Bernardino area to Rancho Cucamonga. Baldwin Park has their office. East LA, Central, West Valley, Altadena, and Newhall we're in. So CHP has, yeah, and then we're going to go up to the Tejon office soon.
Okay, Desmond, I keep looking at all of these vehicles behind this truck and what's happening in front, which certainly doesn't seem to be a lot of traffic. But again, because of the darkness, that would obviously make a difference in terms of what they would use maybe to bring this to a halt. Don't know for sure. I know we've seen some that have gone as far up as Castaic, as far as we could see from the chopper, and they've actually been able to either throw down a spike strip or pit a vehicle to stop it. But if they don't, again, as we've been talking, that doesn't stop the arrest from taking place at some point.
Yeah, we actually have certainly heard about and seen a few spike strip attempts as we get up towards the Grapevine. I've definitely seen quite a few myself that have ended pursuits, and heard of others after we've lost visual because it's at night. We can't proceed any further than about Lake Hughes Road. We can make it pretty close to about Castaic Lake and the 5 freeway, and then that is about as far as we can go, and then we'll be kind of watching it ride into the distance and into the abyss as it will kind of appear up towards the Grapevine, because it is just so dark up there, and SkyCal not equipped with the night vision technology, so it would not be safer for us to proceed. And but I mean, it might be so windy up there as well. We'll see if CHP will continue. We've definitely been getting knocked around a little bit here as we've headed over the Newhall Pass and the Santa Clarita Valley. And I have to imagine that it's only going to be windier headed up towards the Grapevine. I tilted up to show you the trail of traffic frustration that this suspect has left behind them. going so slowly with all of those people that are probably just going, what is going on right now? How is there traffic at this hour? And this is the reason right here. The suspect coming out of Fontana, now well established into the Santa Clarita Valley, covered. You know, this is definitely in the, I would say, top maybe 5% as far as distances that has been covered by a suspect. And, you know, just considering the logistics of what happened and how this came from a gas station. Of course, we don't know how much gas was in the tank, how much had been pumped by the time that the suspect allegedly pointed a gun at the suspect and took their truck. But reason to believe that the suspect has a decent amount of gas, and they're kind of sipping it because they're only been going 35, 45, maybe 50 miles an hour.
So that is what happened.
For the entire duration of this pursuit.
That is what happened. Then they stole this truck at gunpoint.
Yeah, it was at a gas station. The victim was pumping the gas. Fontana police told us that they walked up to the suspect walked up to the victim at gunpoint, stole the truck. The good news, no shots were fired, and the victim was not injured, certainly shaken, but not injured. And the suspect hopped in, took off, and you had some quick responding Fontana PD officers that were able to spot the truck and then got behind it.
And that's why they want to get this guy into custody then.
Right, because it did, and again,
he did point a weapon at and not just stealing the truck, but he had a weapon.
Right,
and he pointed it at the person.
And I think too, Pat, you know, Fontana PD, if this was something where they ran a license plate and it came back stolen or even carjacked, but out of a different city or out of a different county, I don't know that Fontana would have chased it as hard as they did, but because it happened tonight, because it happened in their city, I think that's probably why Fontana wants to stick with it.
Yep, and they have. And as you guys, what has this been, over 2 hours now?
Yeah, the carjacking happened at 7:15. So we are 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hour, a little over 2 hours into this now.
And this guy has not stopped at another gas station.
No, he seems to have a full tank. You know, he's going up to 5, and then he's going to run out of options for gas stations once we get, you know, kind of past Castaic up until you get up into the kind of the 138 and the Grapevine up there.
All right, again, Desmond, I just, you know, when we look at the manpower that is committed to this, the drivers who are backed up, who can't get where they want to go in a reasonable amount of time because of the brakes, and I want to say that suggests that they may do some more aggressive moves to get this stopped. But, I mean, they have to think about safety. There's no question about that. But they seem to really be willing to commit the resources to get it done.
And I think, too, to your point about what freeway would they like better, and Des, you'll know better than I, but the 5 freeway, once you get into the mountains, it reduces to either 2 or 3 lanes, right? That might make it easier for them to do a spike.
Yeah. That's why I asked that question.
Well, normally it continues 4 lanes all the way through to the Central Valley, but there's been the on and off construction that's been going on for a long time, and there may be stretches where it goes down to 3 lanes past the upper crossover. Haven't had to drive that section of the northbound 5 in a while, so can't say for sure, but normally it is 4 lanes all the way to the Central Valley. But I mean, that's still less than we've been seeing. I mean, we've been on freeways where we've had 6, 7, even 8 lanes there earlier at the 5-405 merge, so still easier for CHP than what we've been dealing with, and they've certainly had a lot of successful spikes on this section. I think I'm hearing it kind of sounds, I don't know if you're hearing it differently, Mike, but I kind of feel like I'm still hearing this dispatcher asking if anybody has a spike, if they have anybody set up on this one. It sounds like they're already reaching out to Bakersfield PD possibly to see if they have any spike strips that they can lend to the operation. Yeah, so the way the CHP, you're right, Desmond, the way the CHP offices work here is we're on the TAN frequency, or the Newhall office of the CHP, and Newhall office is going to carry us all the way to the Kern County line. So if the dispatcher on the TAN frequency can't find anybody that has a spike strip, now they've got to cross the county line to go to the Kern County CHP or the Kern County's CHP office to see if any of those units are going to have one that can maybe, be set up at the county line, because if none of the units have it, then that's it for the rest of the county as far as the CHP office goes. So, your only other choice is hopefully there's a unit that's up near the 138 that can cut over with a spike, but if they don't have one, they don't have one, and then you're going to wait for CHP up in Kern County to do it.
I can't imagine them one. You know what? It's 9:23. 9:23. I'm just thinking they probably want to get this over sooner than later, certainly before the midnight hour.
Well, and then you got all these Fontana PD personnel that have to drive back to Fontana.
To home, exactly.
I was just spying on the Fontana police helicopter. I assume they ran out of fuel because they actually landed at LAPD's helipad at Van Nuys Airport. So that looks like they're probably going to get fuel there. It's right next to where Desmond lands as well. But so the Fontana PD ship is now down at Van Nuys Airport.
Okay, look at this. I don't know if that's significant here, but I thought they were speeding up again to try to get closer to this truck.
It kind of, yeah. Go ahead, Des.
Well, we are getting almost, well, we were very close to the speed limit there for, I think we touched 65 there for about a second, which was, you know, the fastest speed that we've seen so far. But now kind of back down to 45 or 50 miles an hour on this one. So, yeah, you know, the thing is, too, if, you know, Fontana doesn't have the night vision goggles, they weren't going to be able to continue up ahead on this one anyway. We'll see, you know, if CHP decides that they will be able to, you know, fuel dependent. I mean, because they're obviously going to have to take that into account, that wherever they go, they're going to have to leave enough fuel for them to fly back to wherever they can land to get fuel. So they're probably calculating that if they have enough fuel to get to Bakersfield, or if they need to turn around and get fuel now, if that's going to be how they continue with this one. So speeds way back down again. Oh, look at this. Hey, we've got a flat tire.
Oh, there you go. The flat left.
Now it's
just
stopped.
like that. Just as it was about to, just as we were about to go into the void, all of a sudden, at pretty much the last moment that we had a chance to keep eyes on this, the suspect got a flat tire. I didn't see any spike strip, any.
And there he
look
is.
at that. You know what? Now I'm hearing him talk about, I think there was a spike strip apparently at some point, and just like that. You know, I didn't think we were going to be able to get the end of this one, and it looks like we are.
Well, good. They're tired.
They must have snuck that spike in, Des. I didn't see that at all.
No, I didn't either. You know, didn't see him attempt to avoid anything. Obviously, the suspect didn't see it either, so they fooled all of us on that one. Here you see the canine that is ready, that is all amped up in the event that the suspect tries anything like running off or any kind of sudden dangerous maneuvers. I have a feeling that the dog will definitely dissuade the suspect from doing that. You can see it is pretty breezy out here. You see his T-shirt kind of fluttering there in the wind. But northbound 5 here, right by Magic Mountain Parkway, is where it looks like this should be coming to a peaceful conclusion. You
know something? We didn't see it, and as you mentioned, Des, that you didn't see it either. I'm wondering.
Oh,
no.
Oh boy, wow, that changed quickly. Well, I don't know what happened there. It looked like CHP didn't like whatever he was trying to do there. It looks like that's. No, okay, that's the leash of the canine. I thought maybe that was a spike strip, but boy, he just got a couple of nasty bites there and a pretty tough trip to the pavement. Just trying something really quick that Fontana PD was not happy with.
And we couldn't see what that was either. So there's been quite a bit that's going on in the last 10 minutes or so. I'm just wondering when that spike strip could have been placed, because that tire just seemed to go out pretty quickly, if that's the case. You know, sometimes we see them drive for a little bit a longer distance after they've thrown down a spike strip, but for us not to see it, and then that to happen when it did.
I wonder if I mean, they went over a number of underpasses over the 14, and you know, in that area, I wonder if it happened there. I was just playing back the moment that the dog went after him. Oh, that's what happened. So he had his hands up, he was complying, and then all of a sudden he started to turn around. And as soon as the suspect made that turn, they let the dog go instantly. They were not giving him any time to rethink that decision.
Okay, so guys, obviously they did not tell him to turn around. They just said, keep walking backwards.
The suspect looked almost like he turned around and yelled something at the officers, is what it looked like. So that was enough for Fontana PD not to like that and let the canine go, who, by the way, has also been on the chase this entire time.
So, yeah, so the canine is also tired.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, okay, well, Desmond, you want to call this code 4?
Yep, this is officially a code 4. The driver was the only one in the car, so it is a all clear here for authorities. Unfortunately, not an all clear for everyone that is stuck in this backup here. Boy, some folks have been in this for a long, long time trying to get, if you were trying to go from like Hollywood or Van Nuys to Castaic, until CHP reopens lanes, unfortunately, it is going to be a jam up for these folks getting stuck in this, and hopefully they can reopen lanes soon, Pat.
Yeah, I hope so too. All right, thanks so much for that call, Des.